Okay, so I had a request kind of to do another video, which is one I had been meaning to make for a while because it has to do with the step from deism to theism and why that's so difficult to make for a deist. So what I'm going to try to do is run through um, the similarities between deism and theism, and then why that step can't be made. Um, at least I feel can't be made from deism to theism. So I actually was working on writing something a while back. I was going to do another blog article, but just sort of questioning the interest in it, whether or not anybody would care. I never finished it, but I'm going to sort of use it as reference while I'm going through this description of how all this comes together. So deism starts with this idea that there's an uncaused first cause to the universe, right? Something that started it all in motion. Um, and this is important for a deist like myself that sort of can't convince myself to ignore the discoveries made in science and where those things go, about the age of the universe, where things come from. Uh, this sort of this study of those things just sort of tells us more about what happened after that initial cause would have been initiated. Now, to view the universe as having an uncaused first cause, having a creator, is a view that is also held by theists. Okay, it's the same view that a theist would hold, that the universe had a creator or a cause. Um, though, however, theists take it a step further and go on to claim, or I would say several steps further, and go on to claim knowledge of that deity's plan for, um, reason for, and method of creation. Um, not only for the universe, but for humanity and the individual human. Um, the theist position is also that the deity has and will continue to intervene in its creation. Um, so to the deist, or to myself, this is sort of knowledge that we cannot claim to have. It's knowledge that is unsupported by anything right now, especially when it comes to knowing any plan, intent, or anything like that of creation. Um, so for the deist, it doesn't move beyond the first position. It stays there. It says the universe had an uncaused first cause, and it stops there. That's as far as the that's as far as the religious view. Well, I don't know if that's religious. As far as the view of the deity, you could say, goes, is that there was an uncaused first cause. Now, when talking about intervention, because that's the main thing that distinguishes the two, deism from theism. Um, I've never seen um, any evidence of any type of intervention in my or anyone else's life. And for that reason, and since the universe functions clearly without it, that no intervention is needed, the universe carries on, it all, the system all works the way it's put together. Because of that, there's no reason to attribute any interventionist attributes to the deity. Okay. Of course, I should also add that, if presented with or confronted with a perceived intervention, it is our responsibility as rational, thinking human beings to investigate that event and consider that what we may be under a misapprehension. Because the claim that the deity has intervened in our particular universe, in our particular galaxy, in our particular solar system, for a particular member of a particular species, is it's an extremely arrogant, bold, egocentric claim. So it's an extraordinary claim, which, as I'm sure you've all heard, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and has thus far not been presented to me that I've seen. When it comes to this plan idea, I wanted to do that before I got really into the intervention part. When it comes to the idea that the universe had a plan, this is sort of how I look at that as a deist. If the deity that caused the universe into existence had an intention or plan, the universe must therefore be operating as intended. It would be an insult to such a being to suggest that its plans didn't pan out, that it didn't work how it was intended to work. So that's sort of the view on the plan thing. I don't think there's any evidence to conclude that there was any kind of plan involved, just that it was all started in motion. The way that when I boiled it down to its essence, the theistic belief, and this is what for me really sealed the position as a deist, because when you really boil it down, it's the idea that a deity caused the universe into existence, or the deity that caused the universe into existence caused a faulty universe into existence, and must therefore perform maintenance and upkeep on that universe. That it needs intervention, that it needs correcting. So the path needs to be corrected, that you need to go down and do things to make it work as it was intended. Now, the metaphor is useful because the theistic position is to suggest that the most incredible and benevolent engineer that there is, that could be conceived of, built a defective machine. Which doesn't make any sense at all. That the deity that caused all this into existence has to perform the role of a celestial janitor, constantly mopping up the mess of its own broken attempt at creation. This is the belief required, at least to me, in my perspective, this is the belief required to meet the theistic definition. Now, I'm sure people disagree with that, but that's the story, everything around the theistic description of creation and everything projects this model. That he has to perform this role of a maintenance man, and constantly be going in and correcting things. And, oh, well, this person asked this way, I need to go do that. And this person, there's no reason to think that such a flawed design would be put into effect. So to me, the most logical and reasonable position is to remain unconvinced by claims that the deity would intervene in the universe that it caused to exist, or need to correct its path. I see no reason to arrive at that conclusion. Now, I did work on a section here about morality, but I'll avoid that for now, and we'll see if it comes up later in discussions, as I'm sure it probably will. So, when Thomas Paine was writing his sort of creed as a deist, he rightly wrote that he hoped for happiness beyond this life. Because he was aware that the belief in an afterlife was literally wish thinking. We'd be fools to not desire that for ourselves, that there be an afterlife, some way to live beyond death, or to be reunited with loved ones we've lost. But there's no reason to believe that an afterlife exists. And I want to be, so on this point, this is very important, is that I want to make sure that I clearly state this point. It's precisely because the concept is so self-serving that it deserves extra scrutiny. Okay? It's such a consoling thought that deserves extra scrutiny, extra criticism, and extra doubt. Which is really applies to almost everything in the theistic position. That it is a very consoling position. It's a very make you feel better kind of position. But for that reason, it's got to be dealt with accordingly. It should be weighted according to how much it's needed, rather than whether they're, or the afterlife could easily be something put forward as something that people want, instead of something that there's any reason to believe in at all. So, sort of bring all that around. So the deistic position is that the universe had an uncaused first cause, had a creator, somebody that set everything in motion. The theistic position is also that, has that, but then it goes further and says that that deity would take sides in wars, would intervene, would cause the sun to stand still, would reveal itself to take any form at all, to take a special interest in what happens to us here. Now, while that may be a consoling thought, it's not one that I've seen any good reason to believe. So in the videos that I post, a lot of them I'm trying to approach it as if I were a theist. Here I am, a theist, viewing the Bible through the lens of a theist, not of a Christian, but of a theist, trying to see how the descriptions of the events in the Bible stack up against morality, reason, logic, and if they make sense. Because if they don't, it tells me a lot about how the Bible works, and whether or not it's true. And if they do, it gets me a little bit closer to finding my way, as it were, back to Christianity. So hopefully this video was helpful. I know it was based on something I had written on the topic, and I'm trying to make sure that I word all this right and make sure that it gets across in the right tone. But it's not real easy. So hopefully some of you guys will find this interesting. I know a few that should, but hopefully some of you will find it interesting. And please comment if there's anything you want to elaborate on. If you're not real current with the definition of deism, just say, could you elaborate a little more on this? Could you elaborate a little more on that? I didn't go into morality because it's such an extensive topic of its own. I wanted to save that for a discussion to have between, I think, either Adam or was there somebody else? I can't remember. I know that Adam wanted to have that discussion, and Jacob wanted to talk about the deism versus theism distinction and all that stuff. So this video will certainly be of interest to Jacob, I would imagine. Anyway, let me know what you think. That's my little quick attempt at explaining it.